Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am creating a baby card using the most adorable little pumpkin digital stamp by Rachelle Anne Miller. This one has been released just recently, so if you haven't seen it yet, that's okay. You can still check it out, and there is tons of inspiration already by the design team and by Rachelle as well. So definitely check that out if you adore this image as much as I do. Now, as I said, this one is Little Pumpkin. In the digital stamp, you also get a little sentiment, which says Little Pumpkin, and it's truly adorable, but I didn't use that one, so I snipped it off before printing this image on Transotype Perfect Coloring paper, which is totally up to you, whether you want to use it or not. I wanted to create a baby card, so thinking about that later on, I could have used that sentiment, definitely. It was just perfect. But at the time, when I printed it, I just wasn't thinking clearly. I will just put it like that. Something that I did know about this image was that I didn't want to color it just with orange. You can, and I will definitely do that in the future. But for today, as you can see, I went for the BG family, and it turned out to be a blue pumpkin, which is not necessarily a bad thing, I think, but it just took me a bit of work. Normally I have this BG 78, 75, 72 combination, and in this case I went for 75, 72, 34 and 10. And that 34 in the beginning was a bit daunting. I thought it was really bright, that it wasn't the perfect match, but then just keep adding the layers, it became more soft and it turned out just how I wanted it. So I was really happy. Now from time to time there is just a transition that isn't working that well. There is always this tip-to-tip method that you can use. You sort of mix those two markers and you get a mid-tone kind of marker created. And that can really help you to soften certain transitions that aren't working out as you want to. Or if you're missing a marker just in between, that is your solution. Another thing that I was trying to achieve while coloring was to have this image appear a bit rounded. So that's why I'm leaving that small sliver white in the beginning, and then later on I'm using a lighter marker to fill that up and sort of get that rounded appearance. So here on top I'm doing exactly the same as on the bottom. I just keep going until I'm happy with the blend. I keep adding layers. Don't be afraid to keep adding if you're not happy with the blend. Don't give up. Sometimes you just need a few layers to get that going, and some families are just a bit harder to blend than others. So I just kept going here, also going over that BG34 with the BG72 slightly really helped me to soften that color as well, which I did like. And here again, that tip-to-tip to help me with the transition from those two darkest markers to the other ones. And from time to time, I just go outside the lines. It happens. I'm not going to be bothered by that. I have a colorless blender to help me get rid of those elements where I went outside the lines and fix that tiny mistake. Now, if it isn't going away completely, you can keep trying. You can add also several layers with your colorless blender. Otherwise, if you're going over it with a slightly darker marker, like I'm going to do for the bear here, I will not be too bothered with those soft lines that you might still see from the blue on the bear. I will cover that up with my other markers. Also here, as for the pumpkin, I'm trying to leave that sliver white, and then later on I will fill it with a slightly lighter marker, one of the combination that I'm using to fill that up. And this bear is going to be a really warm light brown, which is something that I truly adore. I also thought, since I had kind of a cold pumpkin color, that a warm brown was a nice counter of that. So I'm working my way through my combination, and I will later on also add a second layer to get that blend that I want. For me personally, that really helps me. If I have a tiny area, I don't necessarily need to, but it's something that you can do. If you have a paper that cannot handle a lot of ink, then definitely let it set aside, let it dry, or use your heat gun to set your paper back to dry it, so that it can again keep up all of the ink that you will be adding the second time around. And I'm trying to avoid the eyes because we have this lovely white highlight. It's not something that I always achieve to do, but there is always a colorless blender again to fix that, or you can add a white highlight with your white Jelly Roll pen on top if you want to. And then I'm just making sure that I really like the blend that I have. If I need to add a second layer or a third one, that's not an issue. I'm just adding it. And then I can just build it up. So this tiny ears, a little bit of pink, and then I will do the bee. For the bee, there is just such a tiny area to color for the gray or black lines. I just used one marker. The yellow color I try to have two, to just have a little bit of a shadow, but is it that visible? I don't know. Now for this leaf and later on also the grass, I'm using my favorite green combination. If you're looking for a really bright one, then this one truly is the way to go. Yeah. But for now I had no idea yet what I was going to do with the grass, so I just left it and I decided to plan out the rest of my card. I printed this image knowing that it was going to fit my A2 size and that I could wiggle my panel around and still decide whether I wanted that to be centered on the bottom, on the upper half, in the corner, offsets, and anything was still possible. But I wanted to create a baby card, so I needed a sentiment, and therefore I took these Sweet Dreams from Hello Bluebird, which gives you these adorable blocks with the words in it, and I wanted to have welcome sweet baby boy, only I had no clue yet which color I was going to use, which was going to match with my image that I colored. Now I have a few ink cubes that is really handy to stamp, but I barely use them, so I have no clue which one was going to work. So I took this peacock from Concord 9th, also wheat. And then in the end I also turned to the crunchy leaf from Fawn, which is also the ink that I eventually will use, but I didn't know in the beginning. And if you don't know, it's better to try everything, stamp it out, die cut it, and lay it next to your image to see which one is working best. So that's what I did here. Although after I stamped with the blue ink, I love this color and I love the crispness of my stamping. I was really happy with that. But I already knew that blue wasn't the way to go because it was going to distract too much of my image, I thought. So I went for the softer colors. And so I die cut the wheat and crunchy leaf words. And then I laid them on top, and I just found that the crunchy leaf was a bit warmer and worked a bit better with my critter. It is not exactly the same brown as I used on the critter, but it's sort of in the same line, and that worked for me. And then I tried to sort of get these three blocks to be positioned randomly, and as you know, random is the hardest thing to do because nothing is random about a card design. Truly, except when you're making a shaker, it's just shaking wherever. But when you're creating and you want to let something appear random, it's, for me personally, one of the hardest things. But once I was sort of happy with it, I committed and I made sure to tape my basic rectangle to my paper to die cut it, and I took some post-it tape to lift up these three blocks for my sentiment in the exact position as it is right now. And then later on I can reposition it this way, like that. So I die cut the panel, and then I had to figure out what to do with the grass. Now, something that I saw being done by tons of incredible card makers is this dotted kind of method, and so I tried doing that. I'm using the same greens as for the leaf, And in the end I really like it, although I must admit that my patience is limited. And these dots, although I really love how, well, it's a bit whimsical, there are some shadows but it's not defined really, it's fun to watch. It was really for me hard to fulfill this whole bottom, and I'm not even completely coloring it. I'm just getting like the illusion that it sort of fades more. There is more grass by adding a few dots here and there extra. But there are some card makers that are using this technique on their complete background, and I can only say, wow. I cannot imagine seeing myself doing that. I love the result each time, but trying this tiny area with the dotted method, I already was admiring those amazing crafters, but now even more, you know. It's just, you need to have some patience and skills to do it correctly for a complete background, I think. So yeah, but happy to have done it. Now I wanted that a baby boy, my final part of the sentiment, to be straight. So far the randomness. So I just made sure to use my T-square ruler to have baby boy straight, and then all of the rest was wonky kind of randomly. So that is a sentiment. My image is ready. Then some embellishments. I decided to go with my favorites being heart sprinkles, and since I went into this brown combination for the bear and then the sentiment, I went for the coffee bean heart sprinkles. And I just adore them. It's really cute. Again, trying to get them a bit randomly on there. And once I was happy with placement, I adhered everything with some liquid glue. Also, in the case you're adding embellishments, an embellishment wand is really a lifesaver. I mean, there was a time that I didn't have it, and I actually cannot remember the struggle anymore since I use it so much already here. But also, wow, imagine not having this. I would be struggling like hell. So I am going to add this panel to my card base using an adhesive roller, and then I will finish off my card adding a little bit of glossy accents on the nose and the eyes of the bear, and that will be my card. It's a really simple baby card, but truly, as always, I adore the illustrations by Rachelle Anne Miller, and I barely dare to touch them because they are so pretty on its own. They are so perfect, just. So I try to keep them and honor them by creating cards like this, clean and simple, but a ton of fun to create. I hope that I could inspire you today, that you will check out this new digital stand because it's so adorable, and I cannot wait to see what you create with it. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time to watch this video. I truly appreciate you all. You guys are the best. Thank you, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!